In the coal mining town of Blackwood, nestled deep in the heart of Pennsylvania in the year 1905, Fred Mitchell was known as a hard-working man. His face, weathered by years of toil and hardship, told the story of a life spent in the treacherous tunnels beneath the earth. Fred was a rugged, no-nonsense miner who had never put much stock in stories of the supernatural, but all of that was about to change. Blackwood was a town gripped by the ceaseless rhythm of the mines. Each day, as the first light of dawn painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, the miners descended into the bowels of the earth. They carried with them their pickaxes, lanterns, and a gnawing fear of the unknown. One chilly evening, as the miners gathered at the entrance of the mine, a bone-chilling draft swept through the tunnels. Fred, along with his fellow miners, shivered as they pushed further into the darkness. They had heard rumors, whispered in hushed tones in the taverns and boarding houses, of something eerie lurking in the mines. Shadowy figures seen at the farthest reaches of the tunnels, strange sounds that echoed in the depths of the earth, and tales of miners who had ventured too far and never returned. But they dismissed these stories as old wives' tales, the stuff of superstition. Deep within the labyrinthine passages, as they chipped away at the black walls of coal, Fred stumbled upon something that would change his life forever: an amulet buried in the coal. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, an intricate piece of metal with a symbol of protection etched into its surface. The amulet seemed ancient, as if it had been buried in the earth for centuries. Fred couldn't resist the urge to pick it up, believing it to be a lucky charm that might bring him good fortune in the treacherous tunnels. Little did he know that this amulet held the key to the terror that would befall his family. That night, as Fred returned home to his wife, Martha, and their young son, David, an ominous presence seemed to have followed him. The house, a modest structure of weathered wood, was filled with an unnatural chill that seemed to seep into their bones. Strange, unexplained occurrences began to plague them. Objects moved of their own accord. The oil lamp flickered and sputtered as if responding to an invisible hand, and faint whispers echoed in the empty rooms, murmuring secrets in a language unknown to them. David, their cherubic 6-year-old son, had once been a joyful and lively child. But now, his once peaceful demeanor had turned increasingly erratic. He would sit in the corner of his room, muttering to unseen companions, his eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light that sent shivers down his parents' spines. As weeks passed, David's behavior grew more disturbing. He spoke in a language that bore no resemblance to any tongue spoken by the living. His words were guttural, filled with a dark cadence that seemed to belong to another realm. Martha, her eyes brimming with tears, would watch helplessly as her son's small frame contorted in strange and unnatural ways. Terrified and desperate, Fred and Martha turned to their local priest, Father O'Malley, for help. They believed their son to be possessed by the malevolent force that had been lurking in the mines, a force that had somehow followed Fred home. Father O'Malley, a stout man with kind eyes and a firm resolve, arrived at the Mitchell household, Bible in hand and carrying a brown satchel. He had seen his share of darkness in the world, but nothing could have prepared him for the horrors he was about to face. The air in the house was thick with an oppressive tension as Father O'Malley began the exorcism ritual, his deep voice intoning ancient words of power. David's fits grew worse as the priest's voice filled the room. The boy's small body convulsed, his unearthly wails filling the air like the anguished cries of lost souls. Father O'Malley's hands trembled as he dipped his fingers into the holy water and sprinkled it over David, the boy's screams intensifying with each drop. Outside, the wind howled as if the very earth itself were protesting the expulsion of the demonic entity. The house shook and the furniture rattled as if the very foundations of reality were being tested. But Father O'Malley persevered, his faith unwavering, as he continued to recite the ancient words. Meanwhile, Fred knew he had a part to play in ending this nightmare. He had a gnawing feeling that the amulet he had picked up in the mines was somehow connected to the ancient evil that had attached itself to his family. With grim determination, he made a decision that would take him back into the heart of the darkness he had tried to leave behind. He descended once more into the treacherous tunnels, the amulet clutched tightly in his hand. The journey was harrowing, the walls of the mine seeming to close in on him as he ventured deeper, guided only by the flickering light of his lantern. The echoes of distant, ghostly whispers seemed to follow him, as if the very earth itself resented his intrusion. As he reached the spot where he had found the amulet, a sense of dread washed over him. He knew that he had to place it back where it belonged, hoping against hope that it would appease the supernatural force that had been unleashed. With trembling hands, Fred set the amulet down in the coal, carefully covering it with the same black earth from which it had emerged. As he did so, the mine seemed to sigh, and an eerie calm settled over the tunnels. The otherworldly entity that had haunted the depths of Blackwood's mines relented, as if satisfied with the offering. Back at the Mitchell household, Father O'Malley's exorcism reached its climax. David's screams reached a deafening crescendo, and the air seemed to thicken with an unholy energy. But then, with a burst of blinding light that filled every corner of the room, David's torment ceased. He collapsed onto his bed, his small frame trembling with exhaustion. Father O'Malley, drained and pale, knew that the malevolent force had been banished. He offered a final prayer and then collapsed into a nearby chair, his body weary from the spiritual battle he had waged. Fred returned home, exhausted but relieved to find his family whole once more. David, though still pale and weak, was sleeping peacefully, free from the torment that had possessed him. Martha's eyes were filled with tears of gratitude as she embraced her husband, knowing that they had faced a darkness few could imagine and emerged victorious. The supernatural forces that had haunted their lives were gone, but the memory of that fateful year in 1905 would forever linger in the Mitchell family's hearts. It served as a haunting reminder that even in the depths of the earth, there were mysteries that should remain untouched, and that the bonds of love and faith could conquer even the darkest of nightmares.